anonymous writer in Bits and Pieces retold an old story. One day, a small boy tried to lift a heavy stone, but couldn't budge it. His father, watching, finally said, "Are you positive that you're using all your strength?" "Yes, I am," the boy cried. "No, you're not," said the father. "You haven't asked me to help you." Hello once again, I'm Don Jackson with the heartbeat of the internet. It's not only what fathers and mothers can teach their offspring, but also what sons and daughters can teach their parents. My son celebrated a milestone birthday. I thought I would dedicate this program to him and others who have found themselves at the crossroads of adulthood, ready to follow their heart. We celebrated a milestone birthday this year. My son turned 18. This is the one that most young men look forward to. I think it's more a psychological thing than physical, but something inside says they have officially become a man. 18 is a time when a young man feels his independence. He may have a job earning his own money. He may drive a car, and he may be involved in a relationship. Over the years, we as parents imposed boundaries. By this point, he is now striking out on his own and creating some boundaries of his own. We made decisions for them, but now they are making decisions for themselves. But one thing never changes: the need for a father to pass along a little of his wisdom to his children, some of the hard lessons that he has learned along the way. The lessons may change as the times change, but at their heart, the teachings today have a lot in common with what fathers taught their sons in the past. Let's go back in time. Lord Chesterfield, speaking about being ostentatious in the book Letters to His Son, said, and I quote, "Never seem wiser nor more learned than the people you are with. Wear your learning like a pocket watch and keep it hidden. Do not pull it out merely to show that you have one. If you are asked what time it is, tell it, but do not proclaim it hourly and unasked like the watchman." End quote. It is a father's duty to impart some of the wisdom he has learned throughout his life to his children, no matter their age. Here's another example, and again I quote, Lord Fort, owner of one of the biggest hotel and catering companies in the world, passed this advice along to his son. 5,000 years ago, what I am saying was right. In 5,000 years, what I am saying will still be right. Cleanliness, honesty, decency, respect for other people, politeness, good manners, integrity, they will never be old-fashioned. Speaking of lessons, a father of many sons may have had difficulty deciding who deserved a family heirloom. So the father would have had to have been crafty in that situation. Here's an example of that. Rabbi Mark Gelman and Monsignor Thomas Hartman, from the book How Do You Spell God, published by Morrow, tell this tale, and I quote, "There is an old story about a king who had a beautiful ring and 3 sons. Each son wanted the ring. When the king died, he left 3 rings for his sons and a note that said, 'My dear sons, one of these rings is real and 2 are fake. The way you will know who has the real ring is that the son with the real ring will be generous and kind to all people. Each of the 3 spent the rest of his life being good to prove that he had the real ring." End quote. Jim Solish in the Peoria, Illinois Journal-Star wrote about another gift of sorts. "When I was 17, I was supposed to be the starting quarterback my senior year, but I wanted to quit, and I had to figure out how to tell my father that I'd rather not give up my after-school job to play another year of football. When I finally told him, he said, "I'm proud of you. You figured out something that took me 40 years to realize. To follow your heart, not other people's expectations." In that moment, my father gave more to me than many fathers give their sons in a lifetime. This story originally appeared in Sunshine magazine, and I quote, "A monarch long ago had twin sons. There was some confusion about which one was born first. As they grew to young manhood, the king sought a fair way to designate one of them as crown prince. All who knew the young men thought them equal in intelligence, wit, personal charm, health, and physical strength. Being a keenly observant king, he thought he detected a trait in one which was not shared by the other. Calling them to his council chamber one day, he said, 'My sons, the day will come when one of you must succeed me as king. The burdens of sovereignty are very heavy. To find out which of you is better able to bear them cheerfully, I am sending you together to a far corner of the kingdom. One of my advisors there will place equal burdens on your shoulders. My crown will one day go to the one who first returns, bearing his burden like a king should.' In a spirit of friendly competition, the brothers set out together. Soon, they overtook an aged woman struggling under a burden that seemed far too heavy for her frail body. One of the boys suggested that they stop to help her. The other protested, 'We have a burden of our own to worry about. Let us be on our way.' The objector hurried on, while the other stayed behind to give aid to the aged woman. Along the road from day to day, he found others who also needed help. A blind man took him miles out of his way, and a lame man slowed him. Eventually, he did reach his father's advisor, where he secured his own burden and started home with it safely on his shoulders. When he arrived at the palace, his brother met him at the gate and greeted him with dismay. He said, 'I don't understand. I told our father the burden was too heavy to carry. However did you do it?' The future king replied thoughtfully, 'I suppose when I helped others carry their burdens, I found the strength to carry my own.'" This time around in this webcast, some advice from father to son. This is called The Results of Initiative, and I quote, "Some years ago, 3 brothers left the farm to work in the city. They were all hired by the same company at the same pay. 3 years later, Jim was being paid $500 a month. Frank was receiving $1,000, but George was now making $1,500. Their father decided to visit the employer. He listened to the confused father and said, 'I will let the boys explain for themselves.' Jim was summoned to the supervisor's office and was told, 'Jim, I understand the Far East Importers has just brought in a large transport plane loaded with Japanese import goods. Will you please go over to the airport and get a cargo inventory?' 3 minutes later, Jim returned to the office. The cargo was 1,000 bolts of Japanese silk, Jim reported. 'I got the information over the telephone from a member of the crew.' When Jim left, Frank, the $1,000 a month brother, was called. 'Frank,' said the supervisor, I wish you'd go out to the airport and get an inventory of the cargo plane, which was just brought in by Far East importers. An hour later, Frank was back in the office with a list showing that the plane carried 1,000 bolts of Japanese silk, 500 transistor radios, and 1,000 hand-painted bamboo trays. George, the $1,500 a month brother, was given identical instructions. Working hours were over when he finally returned. The transport plane carried 1,000 bolts of Japanese silk, he began. It was on sale at $60 a bolt, so I took a 2-day option on the whole lot. I have wired a designer in New York offering the silk at $75 a bolt. I expect to have the order tomorrow. I also found 500 transistor radios, which I sold over the telephone at a profit of $2.30 each. There were 1,000 bamboo trays, but they were of poor quality, so I didn't try to do anything with them. When George left the office, the employer smiled. You probably noticed, he said, that Jim doesn't do what he's told. Frank does only what he's told, but George does without being told. The future is full of promise for one who shows initiative. This is something that many fathers and mothers can certainly identify with. Some years back, Frank Rich in the New York Times wrote, "What I most remember about arriving at my first summer camp was the sensation of relief as I surveyed a world I could make my own, far from the world of my parents. Yet, like every parent, I want to believe my own sons have no need of such an escape, that their stay at camp is merely a vacation, not a rite of passage. But they're having too much fun for that. If visiting day is a melancholy experience for parents, it's not just because our own camping days are long over, but because we see there's a part of our children that will never come home again." This is from Chicken Soup for the Soul. I Love You, Son, by Victor B. Miller, and published in 1993, and I quote, "Thoughts while driving my son to school. Morning, kid. You look pretty sharp in your Cub Scout gear, not as fat as your old man when he was a cub. I don't think my hair was ever as long until I went away to college, but I think I'd recognize you anyway by what you are. A little shaggy around the ears, scuffed around the toes, wrinkled in the knees. We get used to one another. Now that you're 8, I notice I don't see a whole lot of you anymore. On Columbus Day, you left at 9 in the morning. I saw you for 42 seconds at lunch, and you reappeared for supper at 5. I miss you, but I know you've got serious business to take care of. Certainly as serious as, if not more important, than the things the other commuters on the road are doing. You've got to grow up and out, and that's more important than clipping coupons, arranging stock options, or selling people short. You've got to learn what you are able to do and what you aren't. And you've got to learn about people and how they behave when they don't feel good about themselves, like the bullies who hang out at the bike rack and hassle the smaller kids. Yeah, you'll even have to learn how to pretend that name-calling doesn't hurt. It'll always hurt, but you'll have to put up a front or they'll call you worse names next time. I only hope you remember how it feels in case you ever decide to rank a kid who's smaller than you. When was the last time I told you I was proud of you? I guess if I can't remember, I've got work to do. I remember the last time I yelled at you, told you we'd be late if you didn't hurry, but on balance, as Nixon used to say, I haven't given you as many pats as yells. For the record, in case you read this, I am proud of you. I especially like your independence, the way you take care of yourself, even when it frightens me just a little bit. You've never been much of a whiner, and that makes you a superior kid in my book. Why is that fathers are so slow to realize that 8-year-olds need as many hugs as 4-year-olds? If I don't watch out pretty soon, I'll be punching you on the arm and saying, "What do you say, kid?" instead of hugging you and telling you I love you. Life is too short to hide affection. Did I forget to tell you that I'm proud you went back to a box lunch after 1 week's worth of that indigestible hot lunch? I'm glad you value your body. I wish the drive weren't so short. I want to talk about last night when your younger brother was asleep and we let you stay up and watch the Yankees game. Those times are so special. There's no way you can plan them. For every time we try to plan something together, it's not as good or rich or warm. For a few all too short minutes, it was as if you'd already grown up and we sat and talked without any words about how are you doing in school, son. I'd already checked your math homework the only way I could, with a calculator. You're better with numbers than I'll ever be. So we talked about the game, and you knew more about the players than I did, and I learned from you. And we were both happy when the Yankees won. Well, there's the crossing guard. He'll probably outlive us all. I wish you didn't have to go to school today. There are so many things I want to say. Your exit from the car is so quick. I want to savor the moment, and you've already spotted a couple of your friends. I just wanted to say, I love you, son. So, my son has just turned 18 years of age, and on his milestone birthday, I wanted to pass along a little advice in these very wise words, and I quote, "If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired of waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster, and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose, and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Of course, the poem is If by Rudyard Kipling. Happy birthday, Donnie. I hope this is a great year and the beginning of an incredible journey.